Very
You
much.
heard Daniel. but
Okay.
the,
What's up?
I said, I think he heard you. I just don't think I don't know if there's any issues.
What you got?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Harlingen City Commission meeting. The time is now 5:32 p.m. Call this meeting to order. It has been duly posted as required by state law. We have a quorum of the City Commission as everyone is here present, with the exception of Commissioner Mesmer, who is appearing via Zoom. At this time, I'll ask everyone to please rise as Commissioner Morales leads us in our invocation.
Eternal Father, we humbly offer Thee our poor presence and that of the whole of humanity, from the beginning to the end of the world, at all the masses that ever have or ever will be prayed. We offer Thee all the pains, sufferings, prayers, sacrifices, joys, and relaxations of our lives, in union with those of our dear Lord Jesus here on earth. May the most precious blood of Christ, all His blood and wounds and agony, save us through the sorrowful and immaculate heart of Mary. Amen. 1 second, please. I'd like to take a moment and for silence for Irma Tijerina, who passed away this morning. Thank you.
Right? Now the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Mark?
Under state law, a conflict of interest exists if a commission member or certain members of that person's
I
family.
can see everybody, but I can't hear anything, nor can you see me.
Yes, we can see you here. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Has a qualifying financial interest in an agenda item. Members with a conflict of interest cannot participate in the discussion nor vote on the agenda item. Are there any known conflicts of interest to disclose at this time?
None.
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 Commissioner Mesmer? Any conflicts, Commissioner Mesmer?
Yeah.
No conflict?
No, I can now hear you. No conflict.
Okay, thank you.
Item 3, citizen communication. At this time, the public is invited to address the city commission and speak on any matter not specifically listed for public hearing elsewhere in this agenda. Please note that the city commission members may not respond to comments or deliberate on topics addressed. There were no submissions for citizen communication for this meeting, Mayor.
Okay.
So we'll move on to item 4, action items. City Commission will discuss, consider, and take any action deemed necessary on items listed in this section, including the adoption of a resolution or an ordinance. Item 4A, consideration and possible action to select a project for the Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Grants Program, special projects.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Luis Vargas. For this time, the group, the Special Projects Department, the Engineering Department, Public Works and Parks got together and were able to put together a presentation for you, which I have printed and I'll distribute it right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go over the conceptual site plans. We put together some cost estimates. It's worth to note that they're height level estimates. And we're going to go over some park amenities, some examples of park amenities. So starting with the soccer complex, we have an overview of what we're proposing. In the middle, you'll see a shade of bleachers for both of the championship fields. And right now, we have positioned the bleachers following the master plan of the complex. Right now, we have 8 fields and 2 championship fields. We know that the fields are divided and split according to the Children's League and the Youth League, which the bleachers can move, right? And, but this drawing shows the configuration of the master plan.
How many fields do we have, please?
Right now, we have 8 fields and 2 championship fields, total of 10.
That's what I thought we had. That's what I said last time.
And so on your left for that exhibit, there's a parking lot expansion. We have 2 new fields on your left. There's a new playground. We are proposing new walkways to each of the fields. We have trail improvements as well. And we would like to introduce also the concept of the mini pitch soccer courts or soccer mini pitches. In the cost estimate, they're titled as futsal courts, but in reality, it's just different versions of soccer that the only thing that changes is the field dimensions or the pitch dimensions and the surface, playing surface. In the next page, there's the cost estimate. And so item number 1, we have the restoration of the 8 existing fields with new soil and natural grass for $700,000. We had calculations on the irrigation improvements for $150,000. There's shaded bleachers for all of the fields for $200,000. And then restoration of the 2 championship fields with either artificial grass or hybrid. And we have that $2 million for that.
Luis, I have a question. When we constructed the complex, that parking lot is only half of what was originally designed?
So, yes, that is correct, because if you see the master plan, which is in the next slide,
Okay.
if you mirror that, you'd get the same parking capacity on the other side, right?
My question was, do you think that we need to add the other section, or is that going to be sufficient, do you think?
So, in my opinion, we should add parking, but not double it.
Okay.
I don't think that we need to double it or double the size, because if you mirror it, you'll double it, right? And that's
Right.
kind of what the master plan calls. But I don't think that would be necessary. Again, we can study it more. We can take counters, and if
Well, I think we're under a time constraint to submit this. That's why we're having the meeting today, so.
we did add the parking lot expansion there on your left, and that drawing shows not exactly the mirror version, right? Because we have to move 1 championship field to the left so we can accommodate the shaded bleachers in the middle. Right in the middle, there's a rectangle that says proposed shaded bleachers for both fields.
Right.
So the idea is mirror fashion bleachers where you have, rows for one side and then rows for the other side.
Do you know how many parking spaces we have currently?
I don't have that right now, but we can get that. I'm a user of the complex. I was there 3 times last week. So there was, for the 2 times we had practice and there were no parking, like the parking was plenty, right? But when there's games on the weekends, it can get a little bit hectic or crowded, but it's manageable, in my opinion.
Luis,
And
was he talking? No. Luis, I have some questions in regards to the likelihood of success of the project. And so I noticed that 20%, by looking at the criteria, and I don't know, maybe it is for Anna, 20% is given to the proximity to neighborhoods. And so since the soccer complex, I'm a big fan of renovating the soccer complex for obvious reasons. But my concern is its location, and that is 20% of the criteria. So how does that factor in, Anna? I would want to make sure that if I read it correctly, it says how many people within a quarter mile, half mile, or 1 mile radius will gain new access to the project area once the project is built. And so I don't see any neighborhoods out there.
I know, but then I think the rationale for making the improvements at this park is that this is more like has like a regional or more like, it's not a neighborhood park. And so I think the service area radius for this facility is technically at least 2 miles. So we could potentially incorporate the population within 2 miles, not necessarily what's typically around it, which is half a mile or quarter of a mile.
So how many neighborhoods are within 2 miles?
I don't have that on top of my head.
Is there any neighborhoods?
There are. I mean, I think I remember from,
It's the one by the Meg Jordan Trail. That neighborhood's the closest one,
okay.
right behind like where Dairy Queen is. I think that's the closest one because north of it, we have what is just all open field. South of it is actually Hugh Ramsey, which is also on here.
I think Treasure
And to the
Hills,
east, there's nothing, just warehouses.
Treasure Hills is pretty close there, too. It's right behind Ramsey, across from Ramsey.
Yeah, so I think you're right. That would go within the 2 miles.
I think also the consideration too is that this is one of the census tracts with the highest poverty rate. So I think we can make a case, not so much in terms of like actual residential neighborhoods being within that radius, but I think being a regional community type of thing. That will be our angle. So that, I'm not concerned about that particular.
Even though it seems to be like a very big consideration.
Yes, because I think the main requirement, it's the population. I don't know if there's another section in the NOFO, and basically based on a certain population, that would make the project eligible. And so Harlingen qualifies based on that criteria.
Okay.
So that, I guess that's something that we can further research.
So, and then another portion of it is recreational activities in terms of just outdoor recreation. And so since this kind of lends itself, except for the playground, I think that's a great addition, but it's more like league activity, would that reduce the strength of the application?
No, because it's a sports facility. So
Okay.
that counts as a recreational
Okay.
element. And again, we're also adding the walking trail and the playground as well. So, and actually the element of, I think the mini pitches, I don't know.
It looks
Yes,
nice.
I think that will be an entire new recreation element that we're introducing into our park system. So I think that would help us as well.
And what about the, I think it was like green infrastructure, any permeable trails, or would the turf lend itself to?
The turf, no.
No, so what scores highly?
I think one of the things that were not included on the cost estimate, this cost estimate was put by staff, I think, in a matter of a day, so it's not perfect, this still needs refinement, but I think landscaping, we can talk about that, like the landscaping, that's something that needs to be incorporated into the cost estimate, and maybe doing something to the ponds, because the estimate does not include anything, right? So I think that's where we can incorporate those LED, low impact or green infrastructure.
Okay, because that's a huge,
yeah.
a huge, right, I think, so those two combined, I was kind of looking through, and I wasn't here to, I guess, give additional input, but those are kind of the concerns with both this one, and I think Wilson is maybe a little more in a neighborhood
Yes.
area where people can walk towards it. But when I was reading through, it seemed like one of the goals was to connect people and communities and to do so without driving in your car.
Yes.
So,
I would agree with that, but we could also use the usage that this facility gets, which apparently, is very popular. And so I think we can also highlight that fact. We could go and maybe during one of the, I don't know, when there's practice, we can go and interview the users and, or maybe do a survey to kind of try to quantify the number of users, because it's very popular.
okay.
Do you think the $500,000 for the 2 bathrooms is going to be sufficient?
I don't know, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I don't know what the size, I wasn't there for the discussions, I'm sorry, on Friday when they were working on the estimates. So I think, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know.
The other thing, if Mesmore may add, is the Rotary Club of Harlingen, the Friday Club. This is the third year of raising money, and we're going to give the city $100,000 for covered bleachers for the park. And it's a great addition to use public-private money.
Yeah, and I know the consultant has reached out to some of y'all. They're getting ready to start on that battery thing. That's also going to be donating to the park as well.
Yeah, yes, they are.
Going to your question, sir, I think 500 for the new restrooms is sufficient, 250,000 per facility, because there's already restrooms in the middle, so it's just a matter of running the lines to the new facilities. I think it's doable.
I had some concerns, like, are we, because, I mean, I like the park, and I think it's great, and I think all the additions that that staff has put on there look amazing. But my thing is, like, are we prepared to pull out $3 million? Because we have to match it. So are we prepared to match with $3 million? Like, could we justify spending $3 million on that? What do you guys think?
I thought that was
We
what we agreed on.
we
at the
talked
last
about
meeting.
this.
That's what we talked about. No, but that was the higher end. I remember we're saying, like, the highest end would be $6 million and $3. So we're okay with doing $3 million? For this project.
All three of them are about the same, so.
Yeah.
No, I know, because I was looking through them all, and I was just like, do we really need this? Because I was being Mr. Codo, I was being Mr. Cheap, and I was looking through, it's like, do we really need a new all-inclusive playground area, all-inclusive? Do we really need the existing, the futsal court and all that stuff? And I was like scratching all these things out, because I was thinking about spending less money, but if you guys are good with it, then hey, go for it.
Well, I think you need those in order for it to score, because if you just do the park, I don't think that it would be a good project if you just do the improvements on the fields, which is what I think we want, right? Because we've had the outcry from the community of making the repairs. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think if you just do that and you don't do any of those other improvements, you probably wouldn't have a project that could be successful. Is that right? Yeah.
So on this, what's the drive for the artificial turf? Again, everything I read about it is it causes more injuries, it's not worth it, and then it's such a big ticket item, because I have other ideas for that money.
As a player, I would always like to play in natural grass. That's my opinion. On the maintenance side, it still requires some maintenance, right? It's less than natural grass. But that's my opinion. You do get turf burns, you get injured more, and so.
The one thing to consider also is that you have to use two different types of shoes, one on natural grass and then one on artificial turf, right?
Yes, so there's a slight variation on the soccer cleats, but you could use either or.
Well, it says with new artificial or hybrid grass. What is hybrid grass?
Yeah.
So that's a fairly new concept. It's stitching artificial grass to natural grass. That's why it's hybrid, artificial plus natural. It's a fairly new. It's
So-
planned for the 2026 World Cup. I know that.
Luis, talking to parents, I don't know anything about artificial turf, but, and so I just learned, I think someone had mentioned about injuries and stuff, so obviously that is super important, especially on a municipal property, right? We want to make sure to, if we can avoid it, we want to. But talking to some parents, there is artificial turf in other areas of the region, as more so in the Upper Valley, that draw tournaments, and they sing their praises that it's so great. So what's, I don't understand, I guess, the praise for the Upper Valley for having these opportunities, and that is the reason why they're able to bring in tournaments. Given that you're a player, and then obviously your background, what do you say to people that have that perspective?
So the artificial grass gives you a faster play. the ball travels faster. And so there aren't any holes that you have to patch after a game, right? And so there's less maintenance, I guess, faster games, slight variations again. We put the artificial or hybrid because it was discussed, right? I mean, it was the option to discuss, and it's, 1 million per field, the estimate. Again, as a player, I would always prefer natural, but I understand the maintenance, the playability, and I guess I'm 50-50 on that aspect, right? Or 51-49, right? Because I
So
play.
what conditions would have less impact on artificial than it would on grass? Is that kind of where you're going, or?
And the disadvantages of artificial, injuries, right? Temperature is another one that I didn't say, but it gets super hot.
Yeah.
The turf pellets are maybe a nuisance for players. It's not maintenance-free. Those are the disadvantages, right? Advantages, of course, less maintenance. Maybe aesthetically, you can maybe color it somehow. You can add a logo without a problem. It can stay there longer. The paint stays longer there. Faster play, and those are the advantages that I see.
Do we have to buy a machine or an applicator for the pellets?
No, I think it's sold in rolls, if I'm not mistaken. And like I say, the maintenance that I've seen is cutting damaged pieces and then stitching them back together.
We just
But-
did it there at Lancia Hill today, in fact. Oscar did it for us.
Yeah.
But there were some bad strips there at the Lancia Hill Park. And I was gonna tell you that when it comes to the Wilson one, you may want to stay away from artificial as well.
And the other night I mentioned is watering, right? You don't have to water it. So less maintenance again.
Do you have recycled water for the watering though, right?
Yes, you would. I mean, the irrigation system that is in the championship fields would have to be removed. Because right
So-
now, there's an irrigation system in the championship fields.
So Luisa, it doesn't sound like it's a good deal, like listening to, and it's a big price tag. So I think, we could utilize $2 million, or like Commissioner Bettis says, scrap $2 million and not have to worry about that match. And just doing the restoration seems to be more cost effective.
Well, I'd like to do something else with some of that money. That's where I was going to next.
What is the difference between artificial and regular turf?
I guess the term turf, it's kind of automatic that it's artificial, right?
Just grass, just
yeah.
having natural grass.
One being artificial, the length of the grass is almost the same. Well-maintained natural grass.
Well, I meant this price difference. You
Oh,
said
the-
it's $1 million per field for artificial? What's the
For
price?
restoring the grass of a championship field, I would put it at 90,000, 100,000.
Yeah, because it's 300,000 for 4 fields.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and so, again, the other thing is that I get that why people love the artificial turf is because it's always the same. There aren't any, I guess, it's always,
Visually pleasing.
yes, and they don't have to worry about, not being flat, right? Pros and cons again. I have more. I mean, in the United States, artificial grass is more popular, but it's not very popular in any other country. Not popular in Europe at all.
so why is there a retaining wall only on the pond to the right and not to the left?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
If you look at the pond on the bottom right corner
Yes.
of page 2 of this packet you gave us, there's a retaining wall, but on the pond to the left, there is none. Why is that?
So, this exhibit is kind of, I'm going to say recycled exhibit because we had talked about improvements to the soccer complex before, and that call-out was left there. Now, my assumption is that there's some improvements on the edge of the pond, because there was a time that they were empty, and then they were refilled recently. I don't think that the retaining wall or the edge of the pond at the left is in bad condition. That's why that one doesn't have it.
Okay. I would like the commission to consider, we've talked about this before, adding the fountains and aerators with the lights, much like what we put at the golf course, right? So when you're driving by it, there's an aesthetically pleasing appearance to it, especially if we're going to be putting this much money into it. If we need to put a retaining wall on the left side, I would like us to do that if we need it, but if you don't think so, we don't need to add it. And then I've talked to Oscar about this, but another Texas Parks and Wildlife, we can look at adding fish to these, and I would like us to see if we can, and if we need to fix these ponds up for any of those reasons, I'd like us to consider adding that in lieu of the $2 million, right? Whatever that, obviously, it's gonna be a lot less than the $2 million, right?
So that retaining wall could be replaced with, rock. It doesn't have to be a wall. It's just, we can come up with erosion control measures to control that. Doesn't have to be a super expensive wall.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the rock, right, because then I'm always, like, when I go to the jetties or whatever, I'm always worried I'm gonna, like, fall into a crevice, right, and you're gonna have kids out there. But I know that, like, in Arroyo City, what they have is they have that, like, it looks like fiberglass, like, type of fence. I don't know if you've seen it, it almost looks like a metal, like you see on, like, metal frame buildings, they kind of just stick it there.
Yep.
Or you can add concrete, however you want to do it. But if we move forward with this one, Anna, do you still want us to give you a 1, 2, 3? Or do you want us just to pick one outright?
I think 1 and 2 might be enough to have that conversation with Texas Parks and Wildlife. And I think, again, this is just a visual for you guys, and we can take away or pick it apart as you want, right? I think at the end of the day, we can always go back. If you think that 6 million is too much, we can always go back and kind of reduce that amount. Like, we'll make it work. We don't have to kind of get into the adding and subtracting here. But again, for the purposes of the preliminary meeting, we just want to have project 1 and 2 that I can go ahead and discuss with Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Is there a reason not to have more, is there a limit on how many you can present to them so that they can kind of give you feedback on which ones are the best?
No, there's no limit. I think that it would just be better to have like 2 options and
Sure.
make it easier. But if not, we can present all 3. That's not an issue.
Okay.
We'll adjust.
No, I'm just concerned about those, I don't want you to only have 2, and then they say, well, yeah, they're, okay, but these factors are at issue, and will potentially not, maybe not make it as a strong application as we would like, but then you'd have at least something to kind of fall back on and say, is this one a stronger candidate versus this one? I still feel, I don't know, just over reading it, my only concern is that it is not within walking distance.
You know,
That's
I was
like-
trying to go back to that criterion, and so there's like, it's like the last criterion, and it's like a last question. To be honest, I'm not too concerned about that.
Okay,
But again, I can ask that
Yeah.
during the meeting, so.
Now, the 3 that we have here are really regional parks. You don't have any neighborhood parks. Is that going to be an issue?
No, I think it actually works in our favor.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, because if, at the end of the day, we can always go back to the regular grant that they offer every year, which is the outdoor, the local parks grant, basically. That one, we can always go ahead and apply. That's the 1.5 million. We have to match 750. And so we can always go back and apply for like a neighborhood park or any other park.
That's something we got before with Victor, right?
Yes, Victor and then the rec center, so.
so, I want to just take like 5 minutes, because I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I know that you had a list of parks. And so since then till now, I kind of read through the packet that you sent me. So I have that, and I was kind of going through them and looking to see which parks would really touch on all of those, I guess, criteria. And from my view, and I don't know what the commission's discussions were, it seemed to me that Arroyo Park would have been an ideal park, and that's in your district, Commissioner, because it sits in a neighborhood. And not in the neighborhood, but really across the street. And it is also a regional park because of the trails that is connected to. And so having funding to renovate and make improvements to that park, I think would serve a larger population, and it would provide opportunities for improvements also for connectivity and all the improvements that need to happen in the trails. You have cyclists, you have hiking, you have people that play basketball, there's is it baseball or softball?
Baseball, softball.
Baseball and softball. And there's just people there all the time, and it is a regional attraction now that we have the pump track there as well. They host classes and things like that. Not classes, races.
Yeah.
And so is there a reason why that one wasn't considered or presented?
The thought, the discussion we had last time is that we wanted to make sure that we invested in parks that would bring in tournaments, right? And so I didn't know this until Commissioner Perez mentioned it. And then afterwards, I think Juan Mendiola kind of filled me in on, involved with, like, I guess, baseball, softball, things that you guys are doing at your park, Wilson Park. And then the Harlingen Soccer Complex was the same concept. And then when it came to the birding, or Hugh Ramsey, the thought was is we wanted to lean further into like the birding festival that we're already having, things like that. But the Royal one had the same concept, right? Like, well, we're already having the pump track that's been put in there and all that. It's not a bad one to add, right? And if we can add that to the list. I'm unopposed to adding that to the list, and you put forth the one you think is best, Anna. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to get a project.
Right.
To get a specific project. I
Right.
think all of them are worthwhile.
I would replace that one with, I mean, this is just me, I would replace Ramsey Park with the Royal Park. That would just be me.
I'm just, I think really leaning on the call and saying, what do y'all think is best for our community? But what is the likelihood of success with these different projects? Because they're all unique and have benefits. Clearly, I think in terms of, tourism and things like that, the soccer complex lends itself to having tournaments and things like that. But so does a Royal Park with other types of activities. And the last race that they had, they drew people from Canada, from Mexico, from all over, and throughout the state. So I think that's important. And then the other one, which you may not want to include, but I want to make sure that, and you're smiling because I'm going to ask you, is Gutierrez Park. So after looking at, through the packet, one of the things that it speaks to is kind of the vision of the city and what has been done in anticipation of submitting this grant, right? And so I think Mike had some good pointers about the Rotary is already contributing to the soccer complex. There's nonprofit collaboration. There's potential for other private public partnerships in order to maximize that. But Gutierrez Park seemed like before this commission was here, you and I went through all of the work that had been done and had been presented to the commission. They were going to adopt it. I don't know what happened, lack of funding or what have you, but there has been an interest for decades to make improvements to that park. And right now, we're going through a downtown revitalization, a downtown master plan. We are working towards the music-friendly city, and one of the things that I after reading, is outdoor type of recreation / entertainment. And so one of the things that the city had discussed with the 4B board, but then they scrapped it, is at the baseball field area to have like an amphitheater. But that could be something that could be done at Gutierrez Park to promote the music-friendly city. And there's lots of opportunities for all of the check marks for this grant in terms of green infrastructure, maybe honoring the local hero from our community and having a walking trail that is educational, bringing, collaborations with the school district for, they have these cool, I was looking at it earlier, outdoor musical activity where they have like big pieces of instruments where people can go out there and play, all different ages, and so it's really can become like a multi-generational park. So is that something that this commission considered? I know that's in your district,
Correct.
and there's been
My concern with that
some
is that we're
support.
in the middle of the downtown master plan, we're in the middle of the parks master plan,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have a plan, right? We've talked about it. I know you did a really nice, like, kind of rendering of what it is, but
Mm-hmm.
until we know exactly what the public wants for that one, to me, this was, we kind of discussed it last time, that like low-hanging fruit. This one's already designed. We already know what we want to do with
Mm-hmm.
a soccer complex or with a sports complex or whatever. And I think that with Udetis, I have the same vision you have of it being something like grand, like, remember when we were at TML, we were right next to, we were there at, Discovery Green, which is like, I think, phenomenal and amazing. And I would love Udetis Park to be exactly that type of facility. But until we have a clear vision for it, I don't want to go into it half-cocked and not having the money. But once we do, like, once we make that move, we're all in sync, and we can make the best investment we can with as much public support as we can. If we go in, and that was the purpose of having this meeting, was we all wanted to see a vision before we kind of designate that money. And so,
Right, but it's not really, it's kind of not really laid out in terms, it's still kind of moving parts, right?
Correct.
But, okay, I mean, so long, I just don't want that to die.
I think that's the next round. I think you and I, and we can all prepare, that's number one priority for the next round, once we get everyone's input and all that.
And I think one of the things that we can do in preparation and having reviewed in preparation for this meeting is that we can start having those public engagement meetings already, so that way when it is time to submit it, then we already have a pulse on what the community wants, inviting all of the businesses in that area. And you're already doing a lot of that already, but maybe this is just another, an agenda item in those meetings that y'all are having already.
On the Hugh Ramsey slice with the new visitor center and restrooms and parking lot expansion, when I look at what you gave us as part of the read head here for ineligible project types, it says most buildings such as nature centers, community centers, or education centers are ineligible for funding. Does this fall in that category?
Well, we were trying to label it as a visitor type of facility.
I love it.
So that's
It's
why.
the same
it was-
thing,
Don't
only
do any
different.
of those
I'm
things.
sorry, so we're trying to what is it?
Wordsmithing it.
Wordsmith.
We want to be creative, but
Yes.
we want you to be successful.
No, yeah, and again,
One
that's
one of the
something that
things
we
I'd
would
like to
ask.
point out also is that we really haven't reached out to the Audubon Society, to the birders, and so they really maintain that park for us. And so I think to plan a major renovation of that park without their input, I think is probably going to be a mistake.
I
Right.
agree.
And so I like Commissioner Pettis' idea of maybe perhaps taking out Hugh Ramsey and substituting a Royal Park in there.
You know what's park we haven't given much love to, and it's just for the future, maybe not now, is the thicket, man. The Harlingen
Yeah.
thicket.
Well, that's because it was given to us by the Birding Association, I think, or the Audubon, I don't remember which one. But they wanted us to keep it in its current condition, which is just nature. And so that's why we really haven't done much there.
Okay, well then, let's do that, to Ford and Norman Rini's point. Let's sub out Hugh Ramsey for a Royal Park.
I was gonna ask you, are you interested in kind of going through what the vision for the three options, or we just wanna rule it out already?
Of the Ramsey part?
Do you think we should?
Well,
Do
it
you think
changed
it's
a
worthwhile?
little from what was submitted. There were already some improvements that had been proposed for another grant, so I don't know if you wanna, this is a revised, right?
I would strike it just because I agree with Gabe in, that's a community where you want engagement and involvement, and for them to feel obviously part of the process.
Because this is like a starting point. I mean, we haven't really
Yeah,
done
the
anything.
thing is, we haven't reached out to anybody from the Audubon or
Yeah, no.
the Birding Festival, and so we really want to include them whenever we make some sort of major investment into the park.
And I'm just afraid whatever we call this facility,
It's not going to be.
They're gonna watch
we're gonna
this
say,
meeting.
nah, come on. Too many people have tried that before.
Yeah.
That would be a question that I asked during the meeting, so.
Right, which is, and then another thing, this is kind of maybe a little off topic, but the other parks, again, in your district, or or yours, in Pendleton, the swimming pools that are in both of the Victor Park and in Pendleton, right, Victor Park? Yes, that need a ton of improvement, and this would lend itself to be making those type of repairs. So I don't know if those are things that were considered.
It has to be used at one location, is that what we?
Right, so it would be like, okay, this would be improvements to Pendleton Park, right? And this, or improvements to Victor Park, but I do recognize that we've got funding already for Victor Park, and they'll be here soon, right, to be able to do that. But maybe, you know, we are going to be working on the rec center at Pendleton Park, and so maybe that was there some reason why that was kind of scratched off the list or maybe not considered?
I mean, I think it was mentioned, right, last meeting, that.
Yeah, we discussed, you know, for me, like I say, the reason I was with the soccer complex is because for the last 3 years I've been here just about, I mean, we have heard about the inadequacy of the soccer,
Right.
and, you know, the soil and the upkeep and the maintenance and the pain in the butt, and how it was done wrong from the get-go. So that was kind of how, at least I was leaning in that direction. And I know Rotary had talked about money, and I had asked you about it, because I thought that was due earlier, but if it's just.
Yeah, they're actually doing the Shrimp Fest right now.
Right,
I think
so
Mike-
that's-
Yeah,
I mean, that's all good, so we can pull that slice out, but
correct.
that's why I was with that as my, as opposed to Pendleton. I'd love to see Pendleton get the money, don't get me wrong.
I was just thinking of,
Sounded like me, I love it. Rubbing off
you
on
know,
me.
all of the, you know, we hear from the community of the Ironman folks that use the pools for training, and so I know it's constantly down.
John Tucker has complained to me about that pool for 3 years.
That's my point, right? And so just because we're going to we're making the investment already for the rec center, and it would be great to have all of that area complement this new facility, right? So, you know, additional lighting, things that are needed in that park. But I agree with you wholeheartedly on the soccer complex also. I really think that's our strongest one, but you know, those are my concerns. And so if after you have the call and they say those are non-issues, and I think that's definitely would have the most impact for our community. But it's
I
also.
think that's it. I mean, I think, you know, to be able to look out there and see hundreds of kids
Yeah,
at one time having a good time,
Right.
that's a pretty good visual.
yeah.
And, you know, none of the other parks would ever give you that. I think maybe Rennie, with Wilson, maybe we could generate, but even then, I don't think you would ever have another spot where there theoretically they have dozens on everywhere going, all ages.
Yeah.
You really have that at your park. I don't know how often you go out there, but there are a lot of people at Arroyo Park, and they got all these activities. I never noticed that it was so, it was used by so many people in the community. But I think it's because it has a little bit of everything. And also a park for, what do you call it, like a pavilion for barbecues and things like that.
Well, I'd never been to Wilson until Rennie had his walk out there, and, I mean, that could use tons of money,
Yep.
no doubt about it.
All right,
You heard
sorry,
him, Gabe.
we digress. You want to go to your Wilson?
Sure. It just occurred to me that for the soccer complex, we can have an artificial field and then a natural field. It'd be a great idea, because if you have a great-looking natural field, you can offer that, and then if not, you can use the artificial. So it'd be a unique feature for the complex. Okay. So yeah, these were some amenities that were in the cost estimate. We can jump to the Wilson Park, right? So for the Wilson Park, or the Wilson Sports Complex, we're proposing to renovate the baseball infields with artificial turf. And these are for the adult fields. And we also have restoration of the grass in those fields, but on the outfield. We have the restoration of grass in 8 youth fields for $215,000, and new shaded structures for the existing bleachers in adult fields. The construction of a new championship field there on your left on the exhibit. We have, new shaded bleachers for the championship field. The restoration of the 1 mile trail, the existing 1 mile trail, and the restoration of the pier, and the construction of a new concession stand, and irrigation system improvements, and the existing basketball court renovations.
Is there a concession stand in the soccer?
I'm trying to think. They have that, yeah, there is. Because it's under like the pavilion area in the back, right?
At the soccer complex?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a concession stand.
But it's just one, but it's like, if your kid is playing at the back corner, you're hiking.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're gonna be,
It's,
So maybe that's something to consider.
we could add that.
and it's not
I've
very,
never even seen one.
it's not very big. No, it's a white building in the back. It's
Okay.
tied into the bathrooms, I think.
Oh, okay, nice.
Staff, can we pull up, maybe after we're done with this one, a Google map of soccer complex? So I keep going with this one.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, do you want to see the aerial view of the soccer
Not-
complex?
Not yet,
Okay.
once you're done.
Okay. So yeah, these are the examples of park amenities for the Wilson Sports Complex. On your left is the artificial area for the infield. We added the Harlingen logo there. And there's some examples of the shaded bleachers in other locations. Any questions on the Wilson Sports Complex before I guess we move to I move to the Hugh Ramsey?
I think, again, we just cut out that artificial turf on item number 1.
Is it different for sports or
No,
same issues present, like injury and all that?
the big difference on this one is that of course, it doesn't have that use because you don't have the play is different, right? So it's just run on it, but a ball is not, on the field as much as in soccer. So the maintenance is less in the artificial grass in a baseball field.
Yeah, because you can go from 1.4 million down to 300,000
Wow.
just by removing the artificial turf. And then again, I would like us to add the lights and fishing for that.
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's great.
I think it's a
I want it to
great-
look nice. I want it when you're driving by or you're walking on the trail, you're like, this is a great place to be.
Well, they
Right.
showed me where they had done some kind of, the Parks Department put on some fishing clinics, things for kids. And
That was
it
it?
looked, it looked really nice. And to be able to, to have that on an annual basis would be really nice.
They stock, like in Brownsville, I know, because I was a prosecutor, they sent me out there. But you know where the convention center, the Brownsville Event Center is? They have like a Risaka right next to it. Every year they have where they stock it, like on a Friday, and then on Saturday, they have a kids fishing event, right? With like I think they bring like role models to fish with kids. And I think like Academy donates the little fishing poles and all that. And I can imagine us doing that at our parks.
That's
We've
what
done
they
that
did,
before.
and they had like 700
Yeah, we've done that before.
kids. That's, I mean.
Why not continue doing that, right? Getting kids into the wildlife,
Yeah.
getting them outside, outdoors instead of being on tablets. And I'm living that. You guys, I think you're at the tail end. Both of you two at the tail end of that.
Is this what you want to see?
No, once we're done with Wilson, unless we have any other comments.
All right.
And so in terms of activity between the Wilson Sports Complex and the soccer complex, I know that you've got adults and kids that play out in Wilson. What's the difference? You're
Yes.
serving more people at which location?
So the soccer complex right now only serves children and youth, right? The adults in Harlingen play in Vestal Park. We think that we could have an adult league in the soccer complex if we do some of the renovations, right? And then the expansions that are shown in the exhibit, which include 2 full fields on the left, right? The, the popularity I guess, on the Wilson Park, of course, you got baseball, and there's a couple of basketball courts.
Where do they play the softball, the adult softball there?
Sorry, softball as well.
Okay.
Let me see here.
How's the lighting out there?
It needs a little bit more.
Can we just add more lighting? There's not real trail lighting, right? I remember back when I would go, there's like AP pole lighting, but you'd have pretty big dark spots.
So one of the things I think that makes it attractive to you on the grant is adding like solar lighting and all of that great stuff, right? Which I think would be great for any trail.
What about the basketball court? At night, I remember it being dark as well.
Yeah, the basketball courts, it looks like crap.
What about, can we light those up as well? Again, if we're gonna just reallocate the 1.4, right, essentially 1.1 million for the turf, we add more lighting everywhere.
Yes, that is correct. I guess resurfacing the courts and then additional lighting is, my opinion, is a smaller ticket item than the 1.4 million of artificial grass. And we added a contingency, right, because of the unknowns, 15% for this option for the Wilson Sports Complex.
And so on here, you would also find ways to incorporate like native plants and, okay.
Oh, I agree with that. Okay. Question, on this, on the canopies here, the shaded bleachers for both locations, because we have such high wind, will they withstand our wind down here?
Yeah, the examples shown there is fabric. They don't have to be fabric. Those are the examples we found. They can be replaced with a metal roof. More expensive, but it's doable.
And, you know, and I
there's-
asked that question at the airport with the covered parking, and Brian told me that, you know, that this company, this stuff's made for high wind areas, or they wouldn't put it in there like that. So I think that's probably along the lines of what you would end up with there, I would hope. I mean, just like the shaded area Rotary's gonna do. I mean, I'm hoping it's something that can withstand the weather, so.
Can you make sure, just to hit this point directly, please?
Yes.
And the fields that are right there, like on the opposite, like right by Wilson, you know, there's those fields right there by Wilson, right by, those couldn't be made into, you know, soccer fields as well? Like, they're big enough? Because I know it's a lot of green space. And I know I see kids there. When I do go on the trails, I do notice people practicing soccer. I see them playing flag football. I see them doing all these other things. So like, when I was talking to the leagues, when we were having those issues with the soccer leagues, I was asking, why don't they play at Wilson Park? But they were saying that the field wasn't right for that. But as part of this, could we make those, where those could also be soccer fields or no? Because that way you could add baseball, softball, soccer, and basketball and other things, other sports.
Yeah, the answer is yes. A surface can be improved to play soccer, and it could be grass, artificial, any surface, really. It could be improved to play soccer. And the size of the pitch or field or court just depends on the number of players, right? For example, in the soccer complex, one field is divided in 8 for the children, right? And for youth, you can divide it in 2 or 3. So it just depends on the amount of players.
Yeah, because I know there's just a lot of green space, a lot of empty space, and I've always wondered, because I go there a lot, especially during cross-country, because I know that the school has cross-country meets there, and then I go there because my son runs cross-country, and when I'm there, I'm always looking around, I'm like, I see all this empty space, and I'm always wondering, why don't we do anything with it, because it's just kind of there. There's a lot of potential.
But to the south, we don't, as I recall, we don't own that land, right? Like, so where your softball fields are, like right here, to the south, we don't own that lot.
No, I'm talking about in front by Wilson. But yeah, who owns that area, though?
I looked it up at one point.
Well, with this, you can acquire land, so
So
maybe that's what we should
we will
do.
own that now.
No, well, you
I know.
you can't. Well, one of the things that I had asked Anna was that I really like the way that Brownsville has their like sports complex, and it has all sports, and talk about having it full with all different, you know, activities going on. They even have like food trucks, and it's every time my kid has a tournament, they end up playing them over there in Brownsville. And so, and it's not just, you know, flag football, it's soccer, all different types of things going on at the same time. And so we were looking to see where could we do something similar in Harlingen, and we just didn't have the space with an existing park, right? So that, because of course it's costly. So I thought about it at the soccer complex because it seemed like we have ample land, but it's still not enough. And then there's parking issues and things like that. But maybe this could be somewhat of a smaller version of a sports complex by adding some additional fields for other sports.
Actually, we do own that land.
Because I'm looking that's where they're putting
All of it?
that,
Go check it out here. If you look.
isn't that where you're putting the championship field? Where
This
he's
is the
talking
land
about?
I was talking about. We own that.
Yes, in the middle,
Down here.
looking at the, so, yeah, I guess, looking at the Wilson Sports Complex, right? To the left is the championship field with shaded bleachers, but that's baseball, right? But that area can be converted to another sport.
No, I'm just saying like we own, that's ours because.
Correct.
Like when my son runs, he runs around that area.
Yes.
But it's always just empty. There's just basically flat land and some trees and stuff like that. The area that I was talking about was the one that's right there by right here, right on the north side of the pond, that we could go into soccer fields, right there by Wilson.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, it is soccer?
It is soccer, right? Yeah. Yeah, because I see kids playing there all the time, y todo, but, because I'd asked the coaches when we were doing the whole thing about the soccer leagues, I'm like, because that's when they were saying how our soccer complex wasn't up to standards. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, why don't, they don't have enough room. That's when the leagues were fighting about the contracts. And I was like, well, why don't some of you go play over there at the Wilson Sports Complex? We have land there. And then they were saying for some reason they couldn't because it wasn't, something was wrong with the land, and that's why they couldn't play.
No, the space that you refer, you can accommodate those mini pitches that were shown in the other park. I mean, there's space for smaller soccer courts, if that makes sense, right?
You know, what would be nice is a splash pad on that side of town.
You said income was an indicator factor or no?
Yes.
Yeah, then that would be perfect for this area because this area is very, very low income.
And it's within walking distance of a lot of
Neighborhoods, yeah.
neighborhoods.
Actually, you got 1.1 million to play with soon. I mean, crazy, right? Just-
Don't get crazy. Well, we're talking about our comprehensive plan, right, and quality of life. I think this is aligned with the vision for the community. So any of these projects would be fantastic.
Hey, Christopher, did we ever, because, I'm sorry, Luis, I was going to ask Chris, because I know when I was talking to Javier, the pond there at Wilson Sports Complex, I know it was because of the weather and stuff like that, because those are drought and stuff, we weren't getting that much rain, and he said they were digging another well in order to replenish some of the water in that pond. And he said they were in the middle of the contract, they were almost done with it. Did we ever get with that, or what happened with that?
What I understand that there is a well there, yes.
So they already finished digging it and everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. We can put pickleball.
Oh, and another thing is for drainage, right? High marks if you can improve drainage. So is that being considered in any of these? And if not, why not?
We should contour the lands of all these projects so that the water naturally drains into our ponds and all the ponds.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the improvements in the cost estimate include drainage for like the fields and just, but only, the park areas, the city-owned park areas, not exactly surrounding neighborhoods.
Well, if any of them lend themselves to be able to do that, I think we should look into that, just so that way, I'm, given the amount of this grant, I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be highly competitive, right? And we are trying to be responsible with the amount that we are applying for, but remember, there's communities that can go after all, to the max. And we wanna make sure that we stand out, and I think we do that by making sure that we hit as much as we possibly can in terms of the criteria. Awesome. And does the commission have any other questions for the team?
I have one. This would be 1.5 or the 3 million matching?
I think
Max out.
if it's 3 million for a 6 million
Okay,
project.
so
yeah.
we're looking at 3. Would you be kind enough, whether it's you or Ana or Oscar who stepped away, send me a list of the matching for the other parks that we have, that we're going to get those grants? Like Victor Park, for instance,
750.
750. So what I would like is a tally as to how much we're going to match across the board. You don't have to do that
1.5.
today, you can do that tomorrow, the day after.
Yes, we can send you the matches for all the proposed improvements for all parks.
Por favor,
Okay.
thank you.
I failed to say that, sorry, the level of use for an artificial grass field is higher, much higher, so you can play more games in an artificial pitch.
Make up your mind, Luis.
I'm just, you know.
Is it good or is it
I
not?
just-
Because you had already told
Yeah.
me that it was,
I know.
I
but
came in here
just-
thinking we needed it, and
Yeah.
now I'm like, nope.
I think it's just an important piece of information for the level of use of a college, team. You can play a lot more games in an artificial field. So like I said, you can have artificial, natural, both championship fields.
Okay, no more artificial stuff.
Thank you, yes, I promise.
Somehow I don't believe you. Okay, so I think that the guidance, I'd like to get with you after, before your call, so we can talk a little bit more about Arroyo Park, because since we don't have any suggestions at this point, and I guess if the commission has any input, I'd recommend sending those straight to Anna so she can factor that in. But I think that the commission is wanting, if I understand correctly, to present these in no particular order, and just to see, right, because you wanted to have at least 2, and we're giving you now 3, taking out Ramsey, adding Arroyo Park, and the commission would want the recommendations from your call to see which one would be the best likelihood for success, so that way you can go after that. And with the cap of 6 million, is that right?
3 million is what our contribution will be.
Right, so a total of 3 million
Not spend
contribution.
it all.
Huh?
Not spend it all, we just send it.
It's not a goal,
Not to
it's a
exceed.
budget.
Yeah,
Not to exceed, right. I think there's some room to cut costs a little bit. I don't know, those restrooms that seems kind of costly, but I don't know what that,
I thought it was actually low, because we had bids for Lozano, and they came in at $500,000 for one.
It came in at 400,000.
and I thought that was crazy too.
Oh, it
I
was
still
crazy.
think
Build a
it's
house for
crazy.
400,000.
Yes,
I know,
right.
a big house.
Sense to me.
Yeah, you can build a house for $250,000 too. I mean, we have the land, so you're just building restrooms. I just can't wrap my mind
I know,
around
I can't
that.
fathom that either.
But anyhow. Okay, and I think
Okay.
this is an action item.
Yes, it is.
So I'll make a motion to approve that our list is gonna include, the Harlingen Soccer Complex. It's gonna include, the Wilson Sports Complex, as well as the Royal Park, subject to the oral amendments we discussed.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 4B, consideration and possible action to purchase 1 tractor, 1 shredder, and 1 pickup truck for code enforcement.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Christopher Torres for the record. The planning department is in dire need of a tractor, a shredder, and a pickup truck. The current tractor that they have right now, it's done with its life, right? And so they're trying to keep up with all the properties that they need to go out and mow. And so they're doing their best, but, at this point, they need these pieces of equipment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 4C, Consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to award a construction contract with TriMet Consultants LLC for the Colorado and Liberty Drainage Improvement Project designed in-house by the city's engineering department.
Yes. Luis Vargas, City Engineer for the record. This project is to eliminate the ponding of the stormwater at the Colorado and Liberty intersection. And we're going to install, well, the plan is to install a drain inlet and approximately 600 linear feet of 18-inch pipe. We have included a map in the item. The new pipe will be connected to an existing stormwater system located at Colorado and La Vaca Avenue, and there are no adverse impacts expected. We received 6 bids, and the lowest is for TriMet Consultants at $92,590. The city recommends the selection and award of the construction contract to TriMet Consultants as the lowest bidder.
Have we used them before?
We have not, but we reached out to the references. We didn't get any bad reference or bad review. And so we believe that they'll do a good job for us.
Are they here in the valley?
Yes, they're in the valley.
On, what is the timeline for this project?
I'm trying to remember the exact amount of days. I think it's 90 working days, or 60 to 90 working days. I think 2-3 months, calendar days.
So when do you anticipate, I guess, the reason I'm asking is because there's been a lot of concern about the area. I talked to Oscar about it. And so I know it impacts a lot of the people that live in that area. And so I'd like to be able to, for them to know how long, when will this get started?
Right.
And when do they anticipate it being completed? And I think this is something that is important for communications department to share on our social media platforms, so that way they can keep, abreast of what's happening with this project. We might even have to do some outreach to that community and let them know that it's happening, because this has been an ongoing issue. This is your
It's been over 2 years since I got this from you, this little issue. At this point, 2 to 3 months, it's nothing compared to the 2 years. And I need to thank Chris out there, wherever he's at, in Public Works, because you guys have done fantastic in going out there with a Vector truck. Unfortunately, every time it rains, doesn't matter if it's a quarter of an inch or a couple of inches, it takes time. So, believe it or not, as soon as I walk out, I know who to call, let them know it'll take 2 to 3 months. My concern is making sure that these guys do the job fast, or not fast, but
Correctly.
solid.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a small project, and it should be done in 2 months to 3 months since we start, right? I think we can start in about a month after we sign the contract and everything. And so 3 to 4 months, we could be done with this project from today.
How will this affect our other ongoing projects? For example, I know we're behind on the Sable Palms project that's going on, other project. So to go to your point on communications, I think it would be fantastic if Communications Department did a update on all of our drainage projects that we have planned.
100%.
We can do that.
Right, and all of our ongoing projects, but how will that affect this one?
It won't affect it. It's a different contractor. We have 2 inspectors, and so it won't affect the timeline of the Sable Palm project, which is about to resume, by the way.
April 4th, right? I think that's-
Correct.
That brings something else, a little bit of a concern. Referring to contracts, how fast do these guys get paid? Not only this one, but the potential on everybody else. What's the timeline when they say, here's some requests for a draw?
Typically, all contractors submit their invoices or pay applications on a monthly basis. And so month max after they submit the application, because there's all the bid items included, and so we have to go through each and make sure that they're charging the right amount. And we sometimes have to do field inspections to make sure that what they say on the pay application is correct. And after that, if there are comments, it could take longer, right? So if they submit something that's wrong, it takes longer. If it submits something that is correct, a month.
Have you had issues with certain contractors that constantly submit inaccuracies?
Change orders, you mean?
No, not really, no. Not recently, no.
Well, with this one, can you do me a favor and just, once it's been awarded and they've give you the green light of when they're going to begin the project, if you can just let me know, and Commissioner Morales also, so that way we just keep track of the progress of the project.
Sure, definitely, will do.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 4D, consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to award a material supply contract for the street improvement project of 2025 to Kappa, Texas, and Frontera Material, Inc., Engineering Department.
This item is to award a supply contract to two vendors, one Kappa, Texas, and two Frontera Materials. We advertised the materials for the streets project for this year. And in the provisions, we included to allow multiple awards depending on the price of each bid item. And we recommend the award to a contract to Kappa for 1.1 million or 1,125,000 for 15,000 tons of asphalt to be used for the approved 2025 streets list. And then an award to Frontera Materials as the lowest bidder at 42,750 for 5,700 tons of flexible base to be used on the streets this year. We're working on getting the prices for the other materials that we didn't get bids for. And so,
All right, is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lisa.
thank you.
All right, and that's all we have, ladies and gentlemen. We are adjourned.
Hoorah.
See you guys later.
Don't forget to get your lunchbox.
There's some sandwiches in the,
All right.
Take one with you.
Leave that.
you do, okay.
I'm just like,